Hello and welcome to the Silent Evil Podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I am Cameron.
We're coming at you with the GameCube classic from 2002, Eternal Darkness, the one that's almost the survival horror game out there that's maybe almost like the most unique thing I can think of, in a sense, compared to so many others. You know, especially when I think of, so many games, it's not a bad thing, but, they try to ape a little bit of Silent Hill and Resident Evil and so on like that. This one here, if anything, it feels more like Alone in the Dark than anything else.
Yep.
But then it kind of takes that and runs with its own path and has its own system and everything like that that really stands out. And even this day and age, you still play it and you go, there's not a whole lot of other games I've ever played that are like this.
Yes. No, that's so this is my very first time ever playing it. And I was thinking that the entire time, I'm like, what else is like? I mean, there's stuff like tonally, there's stuff that kind of has like, especially once we get into like plot and stuff of this game, like it's definitely very Lovecraftian, and that just like hit me at all my heartstrings, basically. I was just like, hell yeah, like this is sweet. Yeah, no, there really isn't anything really like it. Like I said, it robs from a handful of different genres and whatnot. And like after you said that the other day about this like feeling more like Alone in the Dark than anything else, and I thought about it, and like I have very limited playtime in Alone in the Dark games. We just did New Nightmare, last year. Yeah, no, I can totally see that. It definitely has a lot of that. It's got some Silent Hill in it, and even a bit of Resident Evil 2, I would say. It's an interesting.
Well, I mean, like the minor amount of that, and it's one of those interesting ones because this here is, in a sense, a Nintendo produced game. So it's made by Silicon Knights, but Silicon Knights was kind of making a couple of things for Nintendo. They also did the Twin Snakes, Metal Gear Solid 1 remake. So they have these really cool games. And ironically, the first thing they did, or like one of the first big ones they did, was Blood Omen, Legacy of Kain, which strangely, that was the one that Nintendo, they found them, they were showing that game off, I think at like E3 or, one of the expos. And Nintendo's like, you know what? We like that game. Well, we don't really want that game though for N64, but how would you come over and make something for us?
Yeah. And I can 100%, after I made that connection of just like, oh, Blood Omen, like this game plays like Blood Omen to an extent, like with your character movement and everything. It's really uncanny. But yeah, super cool.
Well, it's weird because this game is like between Blood Omen and this game, there's nothing in between. So it's like they clearly worked on this one for like 6 years. And I know that it started off as an N64 game first because there's 3 main games that were pretty much N64 games, and they got pretty well complete. And then last minute, they're like, no, shuffle that over to GameCube. And this game being one of them, Resident Evil 0 being one of the others, and then, of course, Dinosaur Planet that turned into Star Fox Adventures. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of those games have a lot of stuff complete because they even say in Eternal Darkness that they were almost like only like 4 or 5 months away from finishing Eternal Darkness for 64.
Yeah. No, that's
which whenever you hear that, I always kind of go like, couldn't you just put out like a special edition of the game and just finish the N64 version and just like have that be like a bonus thing? Like that'd be so cool. Like if it was that much complete, Well,
it was something that was surprising for me for this game. It's actually pretty lengthy. So like even thinking about like, backporting it to the 64, like it'd have to be multi-cartridge or something because, of how massive this game is. Cause like there really is quite a bit of playtime. Even though like, I mean, I guess like technically we kind of go to like the same 4 areas over and over again, just like in different eras throughout time and whatever, I thought it was super neat. I really actually really enjoyed that. Especially when you have like level recognition, where you see something from like millennia ago or whatever, and you play as a character and you're rolling through a level, and then you go to like current age, like 1980s, 2000s, whatever, and you're in the same exact areas, and it's just spruced up a little bit, like, but the layout's still the same, and like, things like that. I thought it was super neat. So
well, I think that's a cool way that they do for, in a sense, backtracking. Like instead of doing your standard backtracking where you got to run back and forth like in the mansion or something like that, because you're kind of going through it with different time periods and so on there. you run through similar areas, but it doesn't have that feeling of like, oh, I'm just running back and forth, back and forth,
Right.
back and forth. It makes it feel still like it's a new level that just happens to be in a place that you kind of recognize.
Yeah. No, like I said, the sense of familiarity, because it happens a handful of times throughout the games, and like I said, every time it happened, I was like, oh, that's where that door goes. Oh, that's where that thing goes. Because it might have been blocked, 500 years ago. Like that one particular door or something like that. So. That sense of discovery and all that I thought was super cool.
Yeah, exactly. And just, beyond that too, it's the gameplay elements in here too, about how like, when you target your enemies, you can shoot them in the head, you can hit them in the arms, you can slice off different parts there. And then, depending on like what kind of creature they are, they might regenerate or so on like that. But I felt like that was something that was really neat in this one too.
Yeah. No, the targeting system, it took me a minute to like kind of get used to it. Like I was very much like running around the early portions of the game with melee based weapons, like not targeting anything, just swinging it at enemies, just like kind of unlocked, just run up, smack, run away, kind of run back, smack, a couple times. But as soon as I started to recognize like, oh, like, no, I can target the head and hit it with the sword and its head comes off. And then all of a sudden now you got this like headless zombie shambling around because it can't see you, it's still wildly swinging its arms around and stuff, but you take out its head, you take out its left arm, its right arm, and all of a sudden it's just a stump, and it's just, just walking around, So use that to my advantage quite a bit in this game. That targeting system I thought was super cool. And even just the amount of weapons that exist in this game. Unfortunately, like where I kind of landed throughout most of this play experience is, with the exception of a couple chapters, like mostly everything was melee based. And, like we'll explain here in a minute too about another mechanics about like, this magic system that this game has. But like I was pretty much just running around the entire game, just enchanted weapon, shields once we got them, and then like the mana pool thing, like those are the three things I would cast level 7s constantly, towards the end of the game and whatever. And we're just basically untouchable. Like you really can't die at that point, so.
Yeah, though I will say that there is something about this difficulty in this game is you'll feel really good for a moment, but it takes just one bad room and that's it. If you just get kind of caught by like 4 zombies that are blocking your path and you can't get them out of your way, like there you go, because you can't cast magic or anything like that now.
Yeah. Now there's early portions of this game where I was like, I was good 3, 4, 5-ish hours into it or whatever, and like I'm just dying over and over and over and over. And thank God this game has a stellar save system, like where you can virtually, like not everywhere, but 95% of the time you can save, So like once I figured out like, how to kind of save scum a bit, to not have to go back and replay a bunch of stuff, because that just gets frustrating, and you don't really learn anything out of it. Because like Spence is saying, like it really is like you can be doing so well. It happened to me in a couple different chapters where like I was doing so well that I was just like, I don't have to save. I don't have to save. And then you get to that one room and there's like one too many enemies in there, and you just start getting your ass kicked, and like you're down to low health and you're like, fuck, what do I do? And you die and you have to restart and redo the whole thing all over. It's like, God damn. So.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's like my pet peeve is like I hate having to do like the same like menial tasks like over and over in a video game where it's like, oh, let me do those like 6 different rooms that I just went through. It's just like that's why I love when you can just kind of save anywhere. And this one, as long as there's not enemies in the room, you can save. So it's pretty much like having save states.
Yep.
And that just makes it just so much nicer, just for the fact that like if you do get kind of screwed over, it's like, well, whatever, I go back. You're not punished. You can have difficulty, but you don't have to be like punished for like that kind of stuff of like, oh, how about you replay that whole level over again?
Yeah. And I will say, like, this game, the start of this game is like pretty freaking hard. Like, I would say pretty much like up until you get till the I forgot the character's name, but the World War I guy, from like the early 1900s or whatever, and you're going through the church and all that. Like, basically directly after his chapter or whatever, because you get enough spells by that point that where like by the time you get to the chapter after that, like you're feeling pretty powerful. And I really didn't struggle much after I got the shield spell. As soon as I got that shield spell, because it just mitigates damage entirely and you can cast through it, like you can't get interrupted, like all the shit. So it was a kind of a mixture of like constantly like casting a shield, having my shield up, you know, fighting enemies where I could and whatnot. You know, if I got overwhelmed, then I would just like cast my, you know, recover health or recover, you know, like whatever it be. And then just basically like rinse and repeat, you know, over and over again. And eventually like got really effective with it. And like I said, like towards the end of the game, like I really stopped dying a whole bunch. I stopped even like really just like taking damage. More so than anything, like what I found out, especially towards the end of the game, there are so many rooms and so many things in this game where it's just full of enemies, but you don't particularly have to fight everything. You really don't. No. You can just run past shit, you know. And really, the only thing I can really tell that you get off of enemies is like a whole other mechanic for our audience. This game has a very unique thing called the sanity meter, and everything that you see in this game, because it's all, you know, zombies and like horrific, you know, like elder gods and things like that, you know. And you know, every time you come across a zombie, it's like your sanity starts to drain and whatnot, you know. And I intentionally played most of this game with low sanity, just because of the really cool mechanics that come out of it.
Yeah, well, it's that thing too that, like, especially once you kind of know the game already, like I could see if you put this game on and you had no idea that there was a sanity meter or anything like that, this game would really start like messing with you, you know. But once it's like you kind of know that's what it is, in a sense, like one, the sanity meter, whatever, it can be low. The only reason sometimes I would cast like a spell to heal my sanity is because sometimes it would take more time just to like get through areas, you know. But like at first, it's kind of cool to see it because every single time you go through a couple of different rooms, all of a sudden something weird will happen, you know. And there's so many different variations they have. So when your sanity gets low, you start hearing weird sounds. You start hearing people like screaming and moaning in the background. The walls start bleeding here and there. Books will fly across the room. And then it gets even more extreme where like it starts having fourth wall breaking stuff where like all of a sudden you get into a room and the volume starts going down and you're like, what the hell's going on there? And it looks like your TV's volume's going down. Well, if you have a CRT TV, it looks like that volume's going down. Or it'll do like Metal Gear Solid type stuff where it'll like change inputs on you. You know, I wrote down a bunch of them because every single time I got one. But like, there was one where it's like the blue screen of death comes up. You know, I also like there's one where all your limbs start blowing off, like your head explodes, your arms blow off, and you just keep walking until you're like a torso, and then it just restarts and you're back in the room again. You're like, oh, okay. You know, and none of it really affects you. It's just there to mess with you.
Yeah. And there was quite a few that, like, I mean, once I started to recognize a pattern, like you walk into a room and there's like, you know, 20 shotgun shell rounds sitting on the ground. It's like, you know, as a player, after getting, you know, duped so many fucking times, you know, by the system, it's just like, oh, that's fake. You know, you pick up one, you pick up two, you pick up three, and then all of a sudden you have a flashback back to the start of the room again. But there were multiple of them that really got me that I just like had no idea what was going on because I did go in so blind to this experience. Like really all I knew leading into this is like, you know, you and I were bouncing back and forth in between Metro games, and we're like, okay, we got to slide something in between. So we did Luigi's Mansion last, you know, and then we have like this indie game in front of us, and I was, you know, considering this one just being a GameCube exclusive, never had played it before, blah blah blah. Let's keep the GameCube thing going, yeah, just vastly impressed with how many systems are at play here. In the Sanity system, like I said, like I am baffled that there isn't a remaster, remake, sequel, anything based off this. I mean, I know Silicon Knights like really isn't around the way they used to be anymore, you know.
No, it sounds like they had some real legal troubles with Epic Games. I was kind of looking at it. I was like, oh, they got sued like multiple times. You know, and then they tried to make like a sequel or like I think like a somewhat like sequel to this game, and they tried to Kickstarter like twice, and it like they just never worked out. You know, really, it's too bad that like Nintendo didn't just hold on to these guys a little bit more and use them, you know, because it seems like they sort of fell off after like making a couple big games. It's like then they kind of just fell off the radar, you know.
Yeah. The one, so there's one jump scare that I think anybody that has played this game, because every review, everything that I've watched after the fact and whatnot, everybody references this one scene, and it's super early on or whatever, but it genuinely made me go, like actually jumped. So like Spence is saying, like everything in this game like has like somewhat of a tone and feel to it and whatnot, and you play as you know, we'll get to characters and whatnot, but your primary character is this chick that you're playing as, and there's a scene where like you have to go into this bathroom and it's the very first time you walk into a room and it's just dead ass silent. There is no sound whatsoever, no music, no nothing. And it's just like, well, that's odd, you know, and like I didn't think anything of it, you know, and the whole game, like you're walking around, it's just like Resident Evil, Silent Hill, you name it. You're walking around, you're looking at things and like, you know, interacting with it. And like, you know, you look at a picture and your character kind of gives you a little bit of a description of what it is and blah, blah, blah. So you're trained to do this. You're trained to walk around rooms and just keep jamming on B, you know, to like look at things or whatever. And there's this bathtub sitting there. And I walk up to the bathtub and it's like nothing there, but it has an interact button on it. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I hit the button and then all of a sudden it just like flashes the black and white. You see yourself like in the bathtub, fucking dead, just like all tweaked up and whatnot, you know, and it does this like, wah! You know, fucking noise. And like genuinely, I was like, oh my God, Jesus, you know. It's funny that a game from 2002 like gets you like that, you know, but I think it totally plays into its tone and like, I don't know. I love it. You know, there's so many freaky things in this game that I thought.
Yeah. Was cool. You know, it's just like when you start thinking you've seen them all, it's like amazing how many more different like sanity effects they'll throw into this thing. I think that's really cool because there's some of those games where they'll have something that's really neat. And then about 3 hours in the game, you're like, cool, now I'm just seeing the same ones over and over again. They've kind of lost their appeal. This one, it almost doesn't repeat very much.
Yeah, no.
Like, no. I think like it's like if it repeats, it's like very rare where it's like they're alternative versions of it. Like, you know, there's probably like a slight difference. So I think that's pretty neat the whole way through. I do got to mention this because you mentioned just the buttons of B. It has like a goofy, like somebody didn't really properly understand the GameCube controller when they're putting this together because this wouldn't be if this was on like a PlayStation or an Xbox or anything like this. The controls would seem like okay, that seems kind of fine. Other than the fact that there's technically 2 confirmation buttons, that's strange. But the fact that okay, if you picture a GameCube controller, you know, and it's got the buttons are kind of different than everything else. You got the big A, you got the little B, then you got Y and X around it. Well, this one for some reason uses B as your main like interacting button, which I don't think a single other GameCube game ever even thought that he used that button. But then the strange thing is too, is it has a thing where, so you use B to like, you know, talk to an object, you go to pick something up and so on like that. But then sometimes you need to confirm. So you have to hit A, which I will say, the one thing I thought about is it does keep you from doing that thing of where you just like tapping B and then all of a sudden you skip past something. You're like, oh crap. Like I was just kind of just tapping away. So it kind of does make you have to stop and think real quickly. Like, oh yes, that's what I want to do. So I see where they were probably doing that, but it's strange. And even this, the whole playthrough, it would still throw me off every once in a while. It's like, why is B? Why is that the button, you know, for selecting things?
No, and it put me into a handful of situations. So admittedly, like this game took me way longer than it should have, just from the fact of getting lost. And that is one of those mechanics where you go interact with something, you hit B, a message pops up or whatever. And if you're really not paying attention, if you don't see the little down arrow to like pull your stick down to like scroll down or whatever, you know, you just hit B again and it closes and you're just like, okay, I guess that's it. And you leave. And then you're like walking around aimlessly for 20 minutes going like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? Go back to that spot, realize that it has a little scroll and it's like, oh, I got to confirm to pick up the item or what, you know? Like, but that's just me as a player, you know, it's just me being dumb.
So. No, it's weird because it's like the game has both like really good controls and then just a couple of wonky things that it decides to do. Like nothing that really affects it a whole lot, but just enough that makes you like, you have to click it like a couple times as you kind of go, oh, God damn it, I pressed B again.
Yeah. So I'm playing this through emulation on the Steam Deck and I'm using the GameCube controller, which is it's an Xbox controller in terms of its layout. So everything's reverse, you know, so like the B button on my physical controller is the A button and, you know, like A is B and X is Y and Y is X and whatnot. Like
well, it's you got it in Nintendo style, correct?
Right.
So it's like a Switch controller.
Yeah, basically. Yeah,
because that's how I have mine set up as well too.
Yeah, so that got me a few times too. Just general like I was fumbling around menus quite a bit, especially when it came to the magic system and like trying to select like the right, you know, do I want to cast a 3 or a 5 or a 7, and then like, you know, like even down to just like trying to build spells and whatnot. Like I was constantly fumbling around with the controls and whatnot. You know, there's a quick select system in the game that I thought would have been cool, but I constantly found myself just like, because when you hit pause, the game physically pauses, nothing can attack you. You know, it's not like the game continues. So it's like the entire game, I just reverted to just hitting the start button, switching over to the spell menu, selecting my spell, casting it, like doing that way. So
yeah, I did that for the most part too. I had like one of the health recovery ones on like because they give you like 5 different places you can like have quick select, like it's Diablo or something like that. Yeah. But yeah, there's almost like too many spells, and then you always got to kind of create new ones and so on like that. So I felt like the quick select was almost more of a hassle. It's not bad, but like if you want to take the time, but no, yeah, it does just have some of these kind of interesting controls and whatnot. And even this is another thing too, is for this time period. Now the game doesn't necessarily have camera angles as in Resident Evil or Silent Hill. And for the most part, you kind of has like slight follow angles, and once in a blue moon will it switch camera angles. But this one has an omnidirectional. Yeah, it's like Dino Crisis, but Dino Crisis still has at least like somewhat camera angles. But this one has omnidirectional controls, which at first I kind of forgot they had that because it's been such a long time since I played this game. And then I was like, oh, that's interesting. But because the way the game's designed camera-wise, it's not bad. It's not like when you try to play Resident Evil and like one of those newer ones where they try to put the Omni controls in there and you're like, oh, these are terrible. Yeah. Like, every single time you go through a different camera angle, then the controls reverse again,
Right. No, this game feels very fluid between all that. Even in those scenes, like if you got like a long hallway, like the camera, like your character will be like running towards the camera. And then as you're approaching the midpoint, like the camera kind of turns 90 degrees, perpendicular to, and then you watch your character, and then all of a sudden you're running away from the camera, and like your thumb just kind of follows that path. It's so smooth and whatnot, there really wasn't any point in the game outside of a couple of the enemies that can cast that stupid spell on you that reverse all your controls. like there really isn't any point in the game where I got like fumbled up with controls or anything like that. The omnidirectional totally works great. I think it's fine.
Yeah, no, that's how I felt too. It's like one of those ones I didn't feel like the need, like, I needed tank controls for this. There's a couple moments where there'll be one of those random like camera angle changes, and of course then you got to readjust your joystick. Yeah. But beyond that, though, it was still pretty smooth sailing. Just and just because I think it's like I'm thinking about this too, of like even like emulator stuff. I think I almost want to like just hook a GameCube controller up to it. For the fact that I think for certain, it's like some of these games like this, it's like they would play a little bit smoother. I think if you just had the button layout of a GameCube, the way that it was intended to be, and just have that there. Yeah.
I'm I don't have too much to say about like controls. Like I said, I think out of anything in this game, control wise, that frustrated me the most, it was literally just menus. Menus aren't entirely. I mean, I guess they're clear enough, but I don't know. Like I said, there's a lot in front of you when you open up your menu, especially like when you're, if you're playing as Alex, like deep in the game when she has the million items and whatnot, just trying to navigate through all that is a fucking pain in the ass. But like I said,
it's got a couple goofy things when it comes to like the menu. I did kind of notice when I was playing it. Like one, like your menu's all in like the start button, so like. You have your items, then you scroll to another page, you have your save section, you scroll to another page, you have your map, you scroll to another page, you have your spells. It's almost one of those ones, like, I guess if you just didn't have so many magic, it'd be a trade-off, but you almost feel like you could have maybe some of that split up, but it's not bad. The other one too I noticed is when you pick up notes, they just like hang out in your inventory and just like take up a whole lot of space. It's like, you might as well just put one more page into that menu system and have the note section. Yeah. So you didn't have to look at that like when you have to go switch weapons or something like that or find an item, and it's not the end of the world. I mean, at least one thing is you can carry everything. There's no limited inventory or anything in this game. Whatever's there, you can pick it up and keep going.
Yep. And it totally plays into exploration too, which I really enjoyed. I've always liked that about especially after starting this podcast up with you and like starting to recognize like how good exploration is in these style games and whatever, because exploration like just gives you that little bit of extra ammo, or it gives you like that little bit of extra whatever, like whatever the item is and whatnot. And there's a lot of really good writing here too, even down to just like interacting with objects and whatever, just like whatever the character is that you're playing, whatever their thoughts and feelings are of that particular moment. I thought were really well written. The notes and stuff that you pick up, beautiful, wonderful, great, love it. There's really, I mean, like I think that's probably one of its strongest suits is its writing in this game. I still am trying to wrap my head around the totality of like its narrative and like what is actually going on in this game. Like I got an idea for sure, but you know, it's out there. It's Lovecraftian. It's really it down to my fucking core. There was so many scenes and stuff, especially like when we get to the part of like what is it, Mantarath or Mantagor or whatever his name is, the
Mantarok.
Mantarok or whatever. As soon as I saw that character model, I was like, yep, yep, this game is for me, because it mirrors like what I love so much about Bloodborne, you know, and like having like ancient elder god under the city, you know, like it's so cool.
Under Rhode Island of all things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well, because it's funny because when I was saying about the narrative, it's like, you know what, it's quite similar to sort of how D starts off in a sense. You know, because pretty much, you know, it's like you have your main character, Alexandria, or whatever, Alexandra. She goes by Alex sometimes.
Yep.
You have her, and her grandfather's just been brutally murdered, so she goes to investigate this mansion that he pretty much left for her, and, you know, this mystery, which kind of reminds me of D, because except for D's more like your grandfather or whatever, has just, or your dad or whatever, just started murdering everybody at the hospital. You probably should go over there and see what's up with him.
Yep. Yep. And I love this investigator too, dude. So you get called by this investigator. Your grandpa's dead. He wants you to come verify the body or whatever. And this fucking prick, dude, he is such a dickhead to pull your ass in there and go like, you ain't gonna see much. It's a mess, you know. And just like the camera pans over and you just see this body laying on the ground. And the only identifying thing is this little blue ring that he has on or whatever. And his head is just completely fucking missing. Blood sprayed all over the floor and shit. And she's like, oh, God, why did you have to show me that? Couldn't you just have verified via dental records? And he's like, he ain't got no head. It's like, oh, you cold motherfucker. I love it, dude. So good.
I mean, that's okay. He just leaves her there in this haunted mansion pretty much to like solve a mystery.
Yep.
So then, yeah, you're just left with her, and she's kind of your main character that you go through this, and you go through the mansion, and you just kind of start discovering things. You start looking at different rooms and so on. And there's no enemies at first. It's just really exploring. You get some of those jump scares that will pop up here, but like nothing too much. And along the way, you'll start finding these pages to like the book, pretty much like the Book of the Dead in a sense that's been there. And then you sit down and she'll start reading it. And then you get a story back in time of, generally they're kind of like somewhat relatives, or at least people like that were working their way towards getting this going. And it almost gives me a very Assassin's Creed kind of feel when you do it like this too. Because it's like, you know, it's almost like you're sort of going back to these like lineage of these guys, like putting these ancient artifacts together, and you're trying to figure it out through like their stories, you know, and you're sort of playing through that. And you know, the very first one you go back to, and you're like a Roman soldier. That's like the first, you know, time travel one you go, and you just notice that right off the bat, you're like, oh, this, you know, the gameplay's totally changed. Because, you know, for a brief moment, Alex had like a nightmare where it was very Resident Evil like, where she just wakes up and she's got a shotgun and there's all these zombies coming towards her, and then of course she really wakes up and, you know, realizes, oh, that was just a dream. Once you get thrown into the gladiator thing, it's like all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait a second. Now the game's just radically changed. Now I have a sword, and, you know, it's not going to be Resident Evil like one bit here.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's definitely a change, you know, for sure. And I would argue that literally chapter by chapter, I mean, like your basic movement and all the things, you know, like everything's very similar or whatever, but the mechanics, like what the character can do, what items he has or she has or whatever, they all vary and they're all different. And I really enjoyed that portion of it. I think it was something that like kept up with the pacing of this game so well. It's just the chapter to chapter to chapter. I mean, even last night, dude, like it's like, you know, approaching 11 o'clock, like I'm at the final chapter or whatever. And like 2 hours prior to that, like I was just starting that last chapter, and I was like, do I really want to? And I'm like, I really want to see what the fuck, how this ends, you know? And like, it just keeps me engaged, you know, like through the end. So yeah, no, I really enjoyed this whole, like going back. So you basically go back to part of my notes say here, 26 BC. So like, you know, you go way back. And we're playing as a Roman centurion, according to a note. And we're exploring,
or whatever his name is.
Yeah, Pius Augustus. And we're exploring the Forbidden City in Persia during this section. And I think this is where we get to, like, once we actually make it to some artifacts, this is where we choose our allegiance. Is that where this happens right here?
I think so, because when you choose the allegiance, that's how what turns this Roman soldier guy from being a Roman soldier into being a skeleton like demon thing.
Yep. Yep. And I thought that this choosing of allegiance, I had no idea what I was looking at the time. You know, it's basically like, to boil it down to like explain it like I'm five. I mean, it's literally choose red, blue, or green. You know,
it's Pokemon. It's Pokemon's difficulty system. Yeah. That's literally what it is because there's a slight difficulty difference between, you know, Bulbasaur, Charizard, and Squirtle. You know, that kind of makes pretty much, if you choose Charizard, the game's gonna be super easy comparatively to like if you choose, you know, Bulbasaur. You know, where it's gonna be much harder.
Yep. So in my run, I went green, and I'll just explain what these are real quick. So the green one is, I'm gonna slaughter this, Zelatath or something like that, is like is the Ancient of Insanity. The red one is the Chaturga, and that is the Ancient of Matter. And then
that's the one I chose.
Okay, so he went Spence went red, I went green. And then there's a third one called Uliath or Ulioth or something like that. And he's the Ancient of Magic and Dimensions. And then there's even a fourth god that we'll come across later. But essentially, like what this is mechanically you're choosing your difficulty in world and whatnot. Like you're choosing your allegiance to whatever god you want to worship and be a part of and whatnot. You know, part of that religion or however you want to state. You know, like whatever that is. So you know, and then that basically starts like that kicks us off from the start of this game, and everything from that point on is very much like a rock paper scissors style. Like, and I don't remember exactly how it is. I think blue defeats red defeats green. You know, blah blah blah. You know, like, and it's a rock paper scissors style thing. And we learned so much about this throughout like the whole game and like what these mean and why they are the way they are and blah 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 that we'll get to towards the end. But yeah, super cool start of the game.
Yeah, well, because it's one of those ones, like, right when I chose the red one, I was like, wait a second, I'm going to look this up real quick. What is that? Because I want to know right off the bat, like, what was the difference between what I just did? And that's when I saw, I was like, and I was looking at them, it seemed like, okay, the downfall of choosing red was that the enemies will be a little bit tougher. Okay, whatever, I already chose that. Let's just go with it, you know. Probably with green, because since the sanity is not as big of a deal, that probably made it kind of like a little bit easier in a sense. And I don't think it's by much, you know.
No. Yeah, so for mine, like, notably, I was constantly flashing green throughout the whole game, you know, meaning that my sanity meter's draining and whatnot. It pretty much screwed me early on, mostly because, like, once your sanity drains all the way, then it starts, you know, like when a monster is doing its sanity gaze at you or whatever, it switches from your sanity meter to your health meter and it starts draining your health and whatever. And I was really, really struggling early on with, like, I'm trying to remember.
It's the Prince of Persia. Like level.
Yeah, where you actually have like heals and whatnot, like a finite amount of heals.
Because that was one of the toughest chapters, was that Prince of Persia one.
Yeah.
I felt like I died so many times on that one.
Yep. Yeah, I'd argue about the same for me. And
it's literally like chapter 5 or something like that. It's not like, you know, you're not super far into it yet.
Yeah. So with this, once you choose your allegiance or whatever, so the next note here says Pius becomes a mortal servant of the ancients and the game's primary villain. So more or less, he becomes like the ultimate antagonist of the game. And as soon as you like finish a chapter, then you go right back to playing Alex back in current modern era 2000, you know, the year 2000, like back in the mansion, you know, trying to investigate Grandpa's death and whatever. And I really enjoyed this part of it too, because as soon as you said it, I didn't make the connection earlier, but as soon as you said it via text, you know, a week or so ago, you're like, oh, it reminds me of the Animus system from Assassin's Creed. And I was like, yeah, that's totally fucking Desmond, and you know, like going back and forth, like 100%, you know.
Just somebody sitting in their French offices trying to tell you to, like, okay, now think hard on your ancestry now and go back there and do all the work for us so we can collect this data.
Yep. So with that, we have to, and this is also a really neat mechanic that I thought was super cool in the game too. So every time like we do something in a previous era, usually you you find a new magic spell, or you learn something new, or you like find a key, or you find a blah blah blah, you know, like something happens within those chapters that is useful to Alex in the next like interlude, you know, in between chapters or whatever. And that was something too that like I didn't recognize right off the get-go. So like there was multiple times where I was like in those interlude chapters playing Alex, like not really knowing what to do next, you know, like just kind of aimlessly wandering around. And then once I started to make that connection of like, oh no, I did this in the previous chapter, let me go check that same area in, you know, the modern era and go see what's going on over there. And that would usually put me on the path to, you know, get to the next chapter page to read. So pretty much chapter by chapter, everything is broken down into pages that you're physically finding throughout the world and whatever. And then as soon as Alex like reads that chapter, then it starts, you know, like it sends you back in time and you play through whatever character that is. And I thought that marriage back and forth, that bounce back and forth, again, pacing wise, was really good. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, no, I like that. Like you'd learn a new skill, or you'd kind of use something that got you through an area, and then you'd go find that in the mansion. And then that would mostly lead you to like the next page and so on. So it had this good breakup of that, made you feel like, okay, I'm learning this stuff and they stack. I also like how everything kind of like a lot of the stuff that you get from like one character, like when you get all the magic will transfer over to the next character. Because once you get like that Book of the Dead thing or whatever, each time you get all those skills. So it's like, okay, at first I have just a couple things of magic. Then next, you know, I got 6 things of magic, and then so on. And they keep stacking and stacking and stacking.
Yep. And another really cool thing too. So, like I said, usually like when you're playing as Alex, you pick up the page, you read it, you start the next chapter or whatever. You usually play like a little bit of that character's story before he like goes, you know, into the other realm or whatever to go pick up the ancient book of, you know, the tome of Eternal Darkness or whatever.
Yeah.
And I loved it every single time because like it's like when you haven't watched a TV series in a really long time and you want just like a catch up episode, you know, and like HBO is really good at doing this, like where, you know, between seasons of insert whatever, you know, it usually has like a callback episode where it's like, here's everything that happened before. Yeah. Eternal Darkness does this too, and I think it's really neat because it's so quick, you know, but like every time you pick up that tome, it literally flashes all the way back to Pius Augustus or whatever, you know, like the very first character you play as in you know, in the past, and literally rolls through the whole list of like everything that happened leading up to that point of you picking up that tome. I'm like, hell yeah, okay. Which again,
well, like, just those little flashes too. They just remind you just enough. They're like, oh yeah, I remember that part.
Yep. I thought that was so neat. That was so good. Because again, like the engagement level of this experience, you know, like just it kept me engaged the entire time because of that thought, you know, of like, oh yeah, I remember when that happened. Oh yeah, I remember. Oh, that's that character. Oh, okay. You know, thought it was super cool. Super cool.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, so our second chapter we play as Elia, and this goes back to all the way back to 1150 AD, and this is a temple in Cambodia that we're going to, and she is more or less like trying to find Mantarok or whatever, the purple god. Mm-hmm. And I there's really not like a whole lot that I really remember out of this chapter, other than there's a bit of combat. There's, you know, I think you have a sword or something like that throughout this. I don't remember.
You have the sword because it breaks at some point. I remember. Mm-hmm. You have to save that guy so he can fix it and whatnot. Yeah. And this one, the interesting thing here is this one has there's a bunch of traps, like almost like Tomb Raider style, that you have to kind of escape through and so on, which is strange enough. They don't appear really in any of the other ones, which I give the game kind of credit. Like when, you know, like something like that pops up and you go, oh, is this going to be something that's going to be throughout through the whole game? You're like, no, that was just kind of one level.
Yeah. Yep. So in her chapter, she ends up finding Mantarok. Mantarok gives her an essence, and she basically has that essence. She's trying to leave that temple or whatever, and then good old fucking Pius shows up, you know, and just kills her ass, you know, and whatever. And that's like a core theme that I noticed too. There's not very many characters that actually survive, you know, like their chapter or whatever. Like, there's one notable that comes pretty much right at the end that when we get to it I'll talk about, but there's a lot of theory. This is the black firefighter dude, like towards the end of the game or whatever, but there's a lot of theory that he actually dies after he passes off the gift and whatnot, you know. So
well, he sure talks about, like, he's like, you know, the second I give you this, old man, like, I'm not gonna be alive to see the morning. Which is kind of funny. Apparently I heard that like that character was originally supposed to be like a like a Knights Templar, like Crusader, but like after 9/11, they're like, yeah, let's kind of pull back on the Middle East fighting thing for the moment.
Yeah.
So we'll do Gulf War firefighter instead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's always the one too. Is a lot of times you get to like certain war areas and stuff, and you're like, "Oh, I'm gonna be a soldier," and then it's like, "No, you're gonna be like a firefighter," or like when it does the World War one, like you're like, well, "What is that guy? That guy's is he a photojournalist or something like that?"
Yeah,
he's what he is.
He's a journalist. Yep.
Yeah. So you're mostly always kind of given like some other kind of role.
Yeah. Yep. In this next one, chapter 3 might be one of my favorite chapters in the whole game. There's a lot of really good chapters, but this is the Charlemagne. This is the little priest boy, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so you basically just like wake up. You're playing as this character named Anthony, and Anthony is like this like poor peasant little fucking priest boy dude or whatever, And you get past a scroll, and the scroll is more or less like you're handed the scroll to take to the king, Charlemagne, or whatever, and like, it's an urgent message. He wants to read it, whatever. And your fucking sneaky ass decides like, oh, I'm gonna peek this and see what's in it, and whatnot. So you open up the scroll, and then you get hit with this fucking like blast, knocks you on your ass or whatever. And then throughout the whole experience, it's like Anthony's skin and body is just slowly degrading, and he's like turning into a zombie the whole time. And like, I loved just how there's so many scenes in that chapter where, again, it's like the character's like coming towards the screen or whatever, so you get a really good look at his face, and like slowly as you're progressing through that chapter, you're just watching just chunks of it just slowly start to dissipate and miss, and like, like you see parts of the skull and shit like that. It was so cool, man. It was so good. And then
you start walking different.
Yeah. And then that all leads into you like finally delivering your message to Charlemagne. You actually come to find out Charlemagne's dead. Pius is there.
Of course he is. Yeah.
And he kills your ass too, and takes the essence and blah blah blah. So yeah, that was like one of my more favorite chapters, because that's where everything started to click for me. It was like, oh, okay, that's what magic does. Oh, that's how this works, and things like that. So.
And that might have been about the first time that you start getting like some legitimate magic you can kind of use, because the game kind of starts you off where you get like these almost like magic totem things that like give you like, oh, you got 5 heal spells and that's it, Yep. And then as it finally gets on, then you finally get the full magic bar and you realize, okay, I got magic. It recharges as I run, which is cool, and
that mechanic specifically, I appreciate that it exists. However, towards the end of the game, especially like the final chapter where you have to cast, the 7 shield spell or whatever, to run through the damage areas and all that.
Yeah.
There were so many times, dude, where I was like low on mana and I was just like in a little like square, basically. Like you couldn't move very far, and I'm just running in circles. Just trying to get my fucking mana back up.
Yeah, I almost just kind of wish it just charged, like almost like I could just stand there and it charged slowly in the background. Like just like was like, okay, I'll just wait for a second.
Yeah.
Instead of like, okay, let me run.
Yep. But chapter 4 is the Kareem chapter, and this is where the difficult, like it's pretty level for the most part. Like it's not terribly hard, and then you hit this Kareem chapter, and it's just straight 90. Like so difficult, comparatively to anything else. But I'm trying to remember what we.
Yeah. Kareem, he's pretty much like the Prince of Persia. He's looking for like his girlfriend, or he's looking to find something for his girlfriend who's dead.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Kareem's chapter starts off him just like aimlessly wandering the desert and whatnot, and in the background, like it's playing exactly what happens. It's basically it's one of those love stories where like this chick wants something very particular, and fuck you, I won't date you until you bring it to me, type thing or whatever. So this poor lost soul goes out into the middle of the desert to go find some, some kind of artifact thing for her or whatever. And it's totally like it reminds me so much of the Mummy series and whatnot, when they go down into the, like ancient Egypt type stuff and all that, and traps and all kinds of, just like crazy stuff down there. I like the sword that you get here too, because it is that like old ancient, like Egyptian style, like I forgot what they call it, but it's that curved sword and stuff like that.
Yeah, like similar to a scimitar, but it's a little bit different. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so anyway, so we get through his section, and he he ends up finding the artifact, and right as he's finding that artifact or whatever, the girl comes back, and it's such a fucking bitch move, but he is cold as shit to her right here too. So he does this whole fucking journey for this chick, to go find this artifact and whatnot. She shows up in ghost form right as he's finding it. And she goes, "Oh, yeah, by the way, I couldn't wait for you any longer. So I went and I banged this dude that happened to be married, and his wife murders me. So now you're not able to live. You need to come with me and live with me in the afterlife forever and protect this artifact." And he's just like, well, damn, like basically. Like,
it went through literally the hardest chapter.
Yeah, it's so funny. And then he kisses her, and then they become the fucking guardians, which is cool because it comes back later. Like when you go back to go find that same artifact or whatever, he shows up as a ghost form, as the protector of the artifact and whatever. So,
well, I think that's kind of the cool thing too, is like when these chapters, when you go farther down the line, is that you'll see like remnants of like the character beforehand or how they perished, or you run into ghost forms of them and everything.
Yep. The next chapter is very interesting. I fucking love this chapter too. This is the one that takes you back to the 1700s, and you play as Max, and like the revolver, like with the fucking like top loader like type shit and all that.
Yeah, the black powder gun.
Yep.
Which I'll say, like, this is one thing I did notice too with like so many of these stories as well too. It's like, boy, Alex's family, there's a long lineage of slave trading.
Oh yeah. Yep. But I love walking around because this actually puts you in the mansion. I think it's the first time you actually go to the mansion outside of Alex's chapters, and you have like servants all over the place and whatnot, and there's so many, like, if you go up and talk to the servants, like they're too busy and nervous to talk to you, and whatnot, and they're like frantically like cleaning whatever they're trying to clean and whatever, like and I'm trying to remember exactly what happens throughout that chapter too.
Well, that's the one where like I was having a good time just at first because you're just exploring like the mansion that you're in with Alex, but now it's 300 years in the past or whatever. And so you're looking at different things and just the slight, different setup of everything like that. Or like, I love the when you like run across that wooden indoor toilet and like, there's like a long speech of like, wow, this was like one of the best investments I ever had. You know what I mean? Like nobody's going to have I don't even have to go outside the outhouse anymore. I'm living in the high life.
Yep. And that's what I'm saying, dude.
Slave guys just over here cleaning right next to you. He's like, I wish you would just go back to the outhouse.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, like the writing in this is just so good. I mean, like every bit of it is just so good. Yeah, no, he's essentially trying to figure out like some of these mystery things too and whatnot. And I think he knows about some of the artifacts and whatever. I'm trying to remember because by the end of his chapter, like he physically goes mad. Like he's one of the few that actually doesn't die per se, like at the end of the chapter, but gets thrown into like a mental asylum type thing or whatever after killing all of his servants and shit, thinking that they have, they're possessed and whatever.
Which some of them may or may not have been, because you do kind of fight him, but maybe he was crazy. You don't know.
Yeah.
But he also, I think this is the first time you discover that there's that giant underground city underneath the mansion.
Yes.
I want to say he's the one that finds that there, which is kind of cool because when you come across it, it's just like this big old, like huge, like city thing. You're like, wow, look at that escape right there and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and it totally has that early 2000s. It reminds me a lot of background scenes within Final Fantasy, is what it looked like to me.
Well, yeah, they're just like they're like a pre-rendered like just picture, almost like a map painting in a movie.
Yeah. No, I thought it was really neat, and especially like because you actually go to that one balcony a handful of times throughout the game with different characters and whatever, and they all have different like words and whatnot when they're viewing out into this ancient city. But yeah, this old decrepit ancient old underground city or whatever is pretty fucking neat. All for this to exist underneath this mansion with these elder gods and shit underneath, that they're trying to awaken and blah blah blah. And like
in Rhode Island.
I love it. I love it. Let's see, chapter 6, we move on to Edwin is the one where we go back to Cambodia, but this is like 1980s, and it's fucking Temple of Doom. I mean, basically, like it's
you're literally the Indiana Jones guy and whatnot, and actually I guess the traps do kind of come back at this one here because you're kind of running through that area again. And
now funny. So I'm playing on emulation, right?
Yeah.
It was at this chapter that I bumped my resolution up. So throughout the girls chapter in chapter 2 or 3 or whatever it was earlier in the same area, like Spence is saying, there's traps everywhere and whatnot. If you were playing at native like 480i or whatever, really there's what it is. It's like as you're walking down hallways, there's pressure plates all over the place, and like they're a different color, but because of the pixelation of that on a 4K TV, especially, like it's hard to see, like what it is. I upped my resolution to 4K. And like it's fucking pristine. Like I could see every single little line of exactly where that square was, and was able to navigate my way through it like no fucking problem, So
yeah, there's always a couple plates though that I feel like I don't think there's a way you can get past them. I think there's some of them that like you have to step on, and of course sometimes stupid zombies will step on them and just like I was doing so good and you had to come walking in here.
Yep. Pain in the ass. So he discovers Mantarok's essence, and then escapes and then delivers that to the Rovas family, whatever the it's Alex and her family or whatever.
Yeah, Alex and her grandpa Edward.
And then how funny that same thing that artifact. I love this scene too. The dude like hands it over to the Roves guy or whatever. And he's like walking it into his library, and like this like book thing opens up or whatever, and he sets the artifact in there, and then it closes, and it's like literally just a comic book that is just comically out of place, because everything else is like very hardbound, like law-looking style books and whatever,
Yeah, he's got like this 1950s looking like horror, sci-fi horror like cover, pulp magazine.
Yeah, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
So then we move on to Paul, and Paul, this is that heresy chapter. This is where you're playing as the priest and the dude with the bell tower and all that, and you have to like meet him. There's a plot against Augustine or whatever, and you're basically just playing as this monk that essentially like finds a dead body. He gets blamed for the murder, and he's like trying to exonerate himself. Is like the whole point of the chapter or whatever is like. And as you're like deeply exploring this old chapel and whatever, you're slowly starting to uncover this like mystery of I can't remember the dude's name. There's some character that's I think it's Augustine, but I might be thinking of the Roman dude or whatever. Anyways, there's a character that is like plotting against basically like I think he's trying to use one of the artifacts to like summon one of the gods or something like that. And
just the guy's kind of like Emperor Palpatine looking.
I think so. Yeah.
And he just kind of comes over all hunched over in his robe, just like, oh, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's Roy Campbell's voice from Metal Gear.
yeah, Roy Campbell's. I thought that was awesome.
I love it, dude. And there's also too the black dude from the firefighter is actually Gray Fox from Metal Gear.
The original Gray Fox.
Yep,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
which is ironic. The guy didn't get the job back again in Twin Snakes.
For some
reason, they gave it to like the whitest guy, Rob Paulson.
Yeah. Yep. Anyways, yeah. So this is Paul's uncovering of this. Like it's I don't know. It's kind of like Clue. It reminded me a lot of the game Clue at that point. It's just like trying to figure out like the overall plot of like how this character is trying to overtake this chapel and whatnot, and like basically murder everybody. So anyways, it was okay. There's a couple of this chapter in particular really annoyed me because there is backtracking to it to where you make it all the way to the end of the level, you find an item, and then you got to run all the way back to go talk to the dude at the bell tower just to get a key or like a knife or whatever, that sacrificial knife thing, just to run all the way back down there just to shove the thing in that so you can progress on and whatnot.
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, that was kind of a bit goofy.
Yeah. But once you understand the level and how the map is laid out and whatnot, it's actually really not that bad on first run, and getting frustrated because this is another one of those chapters where like I just missed a bit of text to tell me what to do next and whatnot. So I just aimlessly was wandering around. I spent way too long on this chapter, like way too long.
Yeah. There's definitely a few of those chapters that if you just miss a couple things, like I almost want to say it's the next one coming up is the one that like, boy, I got kind of like stuck running back and forth from that one a bit.
Yeah.
The thing is the next chapter, the one where you're like the architect guy, and you're doing like surveys.
Yeah, this is the Roberto.
Yeah, Roberto. Yeah, and all your slaves. Once again,
Yep.
I'm not paying for that labor. You know,
Yeah.
I like a one and done by deal.
Yeah. No, and I love this too because like this yet again we go right back to the Forbidden City again. You know, from chapter 2, and then a couple chapters earlier from the Indiana Jones guys from the 1980s or whatever. Or no, sorry, no. This is the same one where you go back to Kareem's chapter actually.
Yeah, because I think now you're in the Middle East. Because it's almost like you have like you got like the Middle East stuff, you know, Persia, and then you have Vietnam, you know, and then there's of course the mansion, and then what's the other one then? Oh, and then the chapel in France.
Chapel. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So those are like your 4 core locations.
Yeah. And this is another in Roberto's chapter because you are running around, you're trying to survey stuff. The game doesn't like unless you notice it right off the bat. Like I didn't see any notes or anything that really tell you that's what you're supposed to be doing because I ran all the way to the end of the level before I recognized and I pulled my map and I see all these X's on it and I'm like, what the fuck even is that? I find one, I notice it's like, oh, survey, and then it does like a cutscene or whatever, and I was like, fuck, now I gotta run all the way to the back and then try again, and whatnot. So yet again, spent way too long on this one.
Well, it's one of those ones I kind of noticed the survey thing out the bat. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like at first it didn't seem like you had to do them. It just felt like, oh, that's just there to be like that. And then when I realized, oh, you have to do these, and then it's like, I remember it was looking for like the last one. And then I finally realized like, oh, that X on the map marks where they are.
Yeah.
And of course it was about as far away as possible. And I, so. Yeah. I will say if I going back to that one again, but by next time I play this game again, I'll totally forget about it. And
yep.
Yeah, that would be it. But like, yeah, it's like, that one really got me turned around a bit.
Yeah. This also, I think it happens here. If not, and it happens very soon. It might happen in the next chapter. But this is also a piece where we can talk to the audience too about summons. Summons exist in this game with your magic to where you can do an eldritch horror, you can do a zombie, or you can do these, I don't even remember what they're called, the little
trappers.
Yeah,
well, because that's the thing too, we never really, beyond the zombies, we didn't explain, but there's all these other little demon things that are out there, know, and of course the trappers are these, they look like little crawdad things that walk on the ground that seem like they're not going to be that big of a deal. And of course, the first time you run across one, it literally will teleport you if you don't sneak past it, which we didn't mention that. There's also a sneaking mechanic in this thing too. It's kind of used here and there, but it does come in handy quite a bit. And these trappers, at first, when you get caught by it, you think it's a really terrible thing that just happened. You're like, oh, great, what happened?
Yep.
And then you realize it's not really that big of a deal because it takes you to an area where you can actually heal your magic or health or sanity, whatever you want, as long as you step on the right, color-coded teleporter. And then when you teleport back, you're just right to where you left off and the thing's dead, so it kind of all works out.
Yep. So revert back real quick back to Kareem's chapter. So I'm struggling, dude. Like I was genuine, like I was like about to text you going like, I think I was texting you at that time, like I'm probably gonna restart this game because like I fucked up and my saves were in a bad spot at that point. And like I really there was a point in that level where I was completely out of sanity. I didn't have very much mana, even though you can regen mana and whatnot. But I think
at that point, you have like 2 spells or something like that.
That's what I was saying. I don't even know if you even have regen at that point. I don't think you do because you have the 5 each, heals or whatever. So anyway, like I was saying, part of the mechanics is that once you drain sanity, you start draining health. And I had nothing on my health bar, and I had about a quarter of a sanity bar or whatever. And I go into the final fight, and very unfortunately, like in this little hallway, if you're standing in the hallway, those zombies are going to do their little death stare at you, and you're going to lose your sanity. And I just could. It was an attrition fight at that point. Like I had to kill them fast enough to where they couldn't do the sanity drain that would have burnt past my sanity and drained my health. So I died here probably a good 10 times, over and over. What I figured out is that if you run down the hallway and you jet around the corner, they just can't see you right there or whatever. So like I just got into a ready position right there with my sword. And as they're shuffling down the hallway or whatever, I'm just like, whack, hit the head, whack, hit the head, whack, hit the head, and they all fall down and then smash them up real good. Anyways, that all aside, this is where I recognize the trapper thing. I didn't understand the trapper thing at all. You know, like when I got sent to that dimension, I was just like, oh, the purple one is the thing that's going to take me out of this level, you know? So I would just wait for the purple, you know, teleporter to pop up. I would jump into it and then leave, not recognizing that if I went to a green one, it would, you know, like there's a little portal there that you can stand on that just refills your sanity, a red one that refills your health, a blue one that refills your mana or whatever. As soon as I recognized that, the difficulty in this game shot straight zero. It was just like, okay, that makes more sense. Because here's the other thing you can do too. Once you have, and it's really not a problem beyond this point, especially once you get the regen ability or whatever. But if you needed to, you can totally spawn in a trapper. You can summon a trapper or whatever. You gain control of that trapper, and then you summon yourself to that other dimension. So at any time, you can just cast that spell and send yourself to that dimension, go refill what you need to refill, and then continue on. So, so that was an eye-opener for me during that section. So.
Yeah. You know, but it is kind of cool because it's like, okay, so you can summon the trapper, you can summon a zombie, and then you can summon, there's these big creatures that you fight too that are kind of, you'd almost say like, just like the heavies, and they call them horrors and whatnot. They got like 3 heads and big old arms and everything like that. And they technically actually seem like worse than they really are. They're actually sometimes more easier enemies to take out because you just blast them in the head a couple of times and they die a lot easier than sometimes the zombies do.
Oh, yeah. My strategy with those enemy types, especially towards the end when you really have all your spells pumping and whatnot, again, enchant weapon, level 7, all the way up. You throw on your shield, your level 7 shield, and then you throw on that mana pool thing or whatever, which constantly is regenning, you know, mana and health and all the shit. But literally just that enchanted weapon, you just run directly in front of it. And yeah, you might get shocked a couple times with its lightning attacks. But ultimately just target the head and just overhead swing, just over and over and over. And you just go whap, whap, whap. And then it does its fall animation. You smack it down a couple times, regain some sanity. And that's that, you know, like
that's it. Yeah. It's goner, you know? And then I guess there's a couple other enemies too, is there's these skinny ones. I think they were called like Bone Spur or something like that, but they pretty much are the ones that possess
bone
people.
Thieves.
Bone thieves. That's what they were. And a lot of times they'll pop out of bodies afterwards. These ones are kind of a pain in the ass, and these can sometimes be kind of deadly if you get them in the wrong position, you know, because they'll jump on you and something like that. And they got pretty good range as well, too.
And the one and only mechanic that I can find, anyways, that can be an instant kill. That can be an instant KO. If they jump on you and you don't shake your stick or whatever, because I don't know if you notice a little bit later in the storyline and whatnot, there's a couple of priests that, like, you know, the bone guys pop out of them or whatever. And you can see it in it's one of the mansion scenes. I think it might be the final chapter where one of the chicks, one of the maids or whatever, the ladies, gets attacked by one of those things. And if you don't intervene, then that thing enters into her or whatever. And then she gets possessed and whatnot. Yeah. So that same mechanic can happen to you, but it's an instant death. So like there is a one hit kill mechanic, but you totally have a good 2-3 seconds to shake your stick to knock it off you, you know? So like it's not a bullshit mechanic basically, but it can happen.
Yeah. It's not like a stupid like Hunter getting that instant like head slice.
Yep.
You know, or the frog dragging you in Resident Evil 0.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, no, there's those enemies are still kind of a pain. And then there's also that big demon that has like the wing things that just kind of looks like a flashing pervert guy. That you know, which really it seems like unless you have the shotgun, like that's the one enemy where like the melee weapon is not really good against.
No,
it is like really tough to kill them with that. Yep. So I kind of learned later on. I just stopped killing those things. I just ran past them. It's just they're not worth it. They cast that stupid spell on you that stops you. There's mostly if there's other enemies in the way, then it makes it really tough.
Yep.
Yeah,
I genuinely, out of all enemy types, I think that was definitely the one that I disliked the most, just because it is a pain in the ass, you know, to fight, to encounter. And I really think there's only like one area where you have to kill one. I think it has one of those runes over its head or whatever, so you like had to kill it to progress.
Yeah. But I want to say that's when you had the shotgun or something like that.
Oh, likely, yeah.
Yeah, it was almost like it was designed to be like, okay, it opens its wings, you know, and then you blast it in the head.
Yeah.
And then the only other thing, there's that spider kind of thing, or whatever you want to say, scorpion spider like creature that I almost had a really hard time towards the end on, because there's a part where later down the line you're playing as Edward, Alex's grandfather, And there's one of those ones there where the stupid spider thing was blocking the entrance to where I need to go flip a switch. And like the shields on it were just like not going down. I'm like, dude, how many, what am I doing wrong here? So I cast like every single spell I had and so on. It was like, wasn't doing a thing. And then I just sat there for a while and just said, like, I'm just going to unload as much as possible and see if it finally breaks. And it finally did break. I actually didn't think it was going to work. I thought I was seeing some kind of glitch. Because I even looked it up online. They're like, yeah, there's kind of a glitch that can happen sometimes in that room. So you might need to reload your save file. And you're like, great.
Oh, man.
And I just kind of stuck with it. But that creature, and then even if you try to kill that creature, it's such an annoying one, too, because you get like one hit on it if it doesn't have the shields. And then it teleports, and it takes forever for it to land back again.
Yep. Yeah, I love it because it just like it turns into that like little orb or whatever that just kind of floats around and just kind of goes around the room, and then it picks a point, and then blah blah blah. So thank you, by the way. You warned me about that chapter coming up and whatnot. So like I did my damnedest to search every fucking bit of everything leading up to those sections and whatever. So I ended up finding and this actually happens where so you have those monsters that are down in the basement and they keep showing up to the upper floors or whatever, and they go after your
the vampire type creature thing that like starts like sucking the blood out of people.
Right. There's a part where did you end up getting the elephant gun?
Yes, I got the elephant, because if you save that first guy, which I saved, I think only one guy like got kind of there's a couple characters that die because it's like a cutscene, but like I think there's only one person I didn't get like that I could have saved.
Yeah. So I ended up saving everybody. I saved that first guy. He gives you the key to the gun cabinet. You can find the elephant gun or whatever. And by the time I was entering into those final zones of the areas you're talking about with the really tough enemies and whatnot, I had 46 fucking rounds of elephant gun by that point. And like, dude, I just enchanted, like level 7 enchanted the elephant gun, put it in double barrel mode or whatever, and just boom, and just like, and your character goes flying backwards, like lands on his ass. And I think it was two shots of double shot, to take him out enchanted and all that. So I blew through that final section. Really didn't struggle too much, but
yeah, it's weird because I had the elephant gun, I had it enchanted and all that stuff, and I was still having kind of issues there. I think the other thing too is because I will say, like, Edward, like grandpa guy, like he literally has like the worst stats out of any of the characters. Like his health is really low. Like it takes like 3 hits for him to die, just about. And then like he's got crappy stamina, because that's another thing we didn't mention. This game actually has stamina in a time period where you don't really see that. So he has terrible. Of course, the black guy has the best stamina.
Yep.
He never gets tired. But like Edward, dude, like he would get tired. Like you would just like run around the corner and you'd have to stop and wait and pant. And then even his magic was somewhat decent, but like even that one was kind of low too. So I felt like there was a lot of stuff kind of going against you on that one there. Yeah. And then I had mixed feelings about the elephant gun because it knocked you down and it took forever to reload. Yeah. And I got to say this is the weird thing about it. Why does this game do the thing when you go to reload, it only reloads one round at a time? It's so annoying. Like you have the revolver and it's like one, and then she like stops and waits. One round. It's like, could you just load this faster? Yeah. Like, what is up with that like mechanic?
Yep. The one that drove me nuts the most was back in the I guess this is Paul back in the chapel, the very first time we go to the chapel or whatever, and you get the crossbow. That crossbow reload time, motherfucker, dude. No, thank you. As soon as that's what I was texting you, I was like, I'm reading that there's a mace somewhere in here, because you don't get a melee weapon right off the rip on that level or whatever, and you just get that crossbow. And I had the crossbow and I had 5 rounds. And like, in order to get the permanently enchanted weapon, you have to go kill that one dude that's in that room or whatever, there's like the one zombie in there or whatever. And he's like the ultimate champion of the world or blah, 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 like whatever the fuck that storyline is. You go and you kill him. But walking into that fight for the first time, I literally had 5 bolts. And like I enchanted, I did the shield, I did all the shit, like I did everything I could, and still like just couldn't fucking kill him. Eventually it took me to get the mace, level 7, enchant that with the shield to go in there and just beat the living fuck out of him until he died. Yep. To finally kill him. But I missed that mace a couple of times, and when I was running back to those rooms, I'm like, oh, there it is, clearly sitting on the wall. I don't know how I missed that. Yep. There's quite a bit of that. anyways, yeah, back to chapters real quick. So after we go to the Forbidden City with Roberto and do all of our surveying and everything, this is where we actually go to the early 1900s, back in the chapel, and we're playing as a World War I soldier or a journalist during the World War I era. Conscript was blasting through my head this whole section. I'm like, dude, this is so sick. It's so cool, man. Like, I loved it.
Yeah, I was so glad there was a World War I chapter. I thought that was really neat.
Mm-hmm. And I love the start of it too, because like you literally like you're in the chapel and like there's just like bombs and air raids and sirens and all kinds of shit going on outside and whatnot. Your screen's constantly shaking and whatever. And like the very first thing, and again, it's just screaming conscript at me because there's just med tents all over the place, and like you kind of poke your head into like through some of the cracks and whatever you can see, and there's like bodies in there with like missing legs and missing arms and like people with like headdresses all up and everything, and like it's just tonally was just like, dude.
So there's even one too where you run in this one closet area and there's just like about 16 dead bodies on the floor and a bunch of propaganda pictures on it, and like there's a comment that like your character says when he looks at the propaganda picture, it says something like, all these guys that read this sign didn't know what they were getting into or something like that, but it says it a lot more wittier than that.
Yep. I'm trying to think of what,
because I think past actually the World War I almost want to say that's where you go into Edward next.
Yes.
So you go into the grandpa and you go through that whole chapter, and that one's a long one too, because that's the one where you have to do those like whatever the 9 rune thing where you have to, and his too, every single one of them was like, here's another boss battle practically, or a mini boss battle, and it's like you have the one, once again, that you got the slow character, the weak character, like everything about it made it such a challenge.
Yep.
If it was anybody else, it probably wouldn't have been so bad, but with him, So his chapter super, I mean, where most of them are all maybe give or take half an hour, 40 minutes or so. His, I felt like I spent like an hour and a half on it.
Yeah, no, easily. These next 3 chapters, about an hour a piece is what it took me. Like the final 3 chapters took me a good 3.5 hours to get through. His I really didn't know what to think about this at this point, because like Spence says, there's like this like runic style like Stargate looking fucking thing that's like deep down like under the ancient city and under this mansion and blah blah blah. And like you go up and you touch one of these like portal looking things, and it shoots this little like magical line over to this other portal, and then you can step in the portal, and then the portal warps you to these towers, and there's like 9 towers above this city or whatever. Sometimes there's enemies. More often than not, it's usually just a trapper is just up there, and you just take it out with a pistol and keep moving. But really all you do is like you warp to these towers, you go to the end of this like little run area or whatever, and you assign a rune to that tower. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. So most of them are just power runes, just traditional power runes or whatever. But there's other ones that have multiple selections of whatever. Thinking about it in retrospect, I'm like, oh, this is you setting up a spell to, basically summon the old god, essentially is like what it is. And to put it into perspective of like the magic system in the game, when you come across the scroll, it says like, oh, you've just learned some ancient knowledge on how to summon the zombie or whatever. But then you have to like read the scroll, see what its core features are, or like what runes you need to use, and then add power runes to them or whatever to create the spell. So at that time, I didn't put those 2 things together. So I'm like, well, a rune's a rune, I guess, and just like slapped in runes. And there's sound cues too that happen. Like, so when you do it right, it does this like noise or whatever, like this, it's like very mechanical noise or whatever. Anyways, so I was going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. So like after you touch that rune, you have to go back through a portal. It sends you back down to the regular, world or whatever, back down to the city. And then you have to like retrace all your steps all the way back to where that runic Stargate room is or whatever. And you just do that fucking 9 times over. And most of the combat in this section isn't necessary. You don't have to do it. You just like
flip a switch and keep running.
There's little barriers. There's like these like green barriers that like block these walls. And like Spencer said, there's switches, so like after you get
my barriers were red.
Oh, they were okay. Yeah. So mine were green. Yeah, no, you literally just flip a switch, the barrier comes down or whatever. Anything that's going on in that room, just fuck it, see ya. Just run past it and just go back to the Stargate room and redo the next room and blah blah blah. So I was okay with it through this chapter, but the fact that it comes back at the very fucking end, I was like, no, like
do it I will say, at least when you're doing it with Alex, for the most part, they're just like light puzzle versions. At least it felt like it was a little bit easier with her. Maybe also because I knew what I was kind of doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, just that giant spell thing, which kind of makes sense because I just assumed it was probably like if you did this thing right or whatever, it just helps you in the long run towards the very end when you're doing the final boss battle. Well,
and I'm wondering too. There very well could be a note or something that I just didn't read that, because like I said, like any traditional spell scroll, you read it and it kind of gives you your two core things that you need, to be able to create the spell or whatever. So there's probably a document in the game that explains that, like, oh, you need to have, 3 power runes, the summon rune and the self rune or whatever, like whatever the combo is, something like that.
Yeah.
So that very likely could exist for all I know, but in real time during play, I did not understand that whatsoever. It clicked, like I said, after the game. I was like, oh, okay, that makes more sense, but especially when I was doing post-in research. So, but
one more thing I was thinking of too is this part's really interesting. At the end of the World War I chapter, it's like the first time you get like a legitimate like boss battle actually shows up.
Oh, yeah.
And you get this big old, Lovecraftian looking. It looks kind of like a mixed match between like a piranha plant and like a giant crab monster thing. And I know this. I looked this up. I looked this up later on, and I saw that it was different for each one. And of course, the red one was the hardest version.
Yeah,
that was what it said. It's like, yeah.
What were your mechanics? I'll explain my mechanics after you explain yours, because mine was fucking tough.
Yeah, mine, he would shoot these like balls out of like energy, and you'd like kind of run to the left side, run to the right side, run to the left side, run to the right. And then once you stopped doing the energy balls, you had to keep running because he would shoot his tongue out and then he would suck you in, which technically I guess would be an instant kill, but you could break free from it if you're far enough away. Okay. And then after he did that, if I'm not mistaken, that lets you're able to shoot him then with that rifle or whatever that you have. And you would do that a couple of times. And then I want to say the second phase, he would start summoning some zombie guys. So I think I just used the magic spell, the magic tack one, so that you just like hit everything, and it would hit him as well too. And then I can't remember what the heck the third phase was. Now that I'm thinking about it, it was kind of similar, but yeah, the first phase I thought was actually more the harder one. Maybe it was because I was just figuring out what to do, but like he got me a couple of times with that one.
Yep. So I got to this on Friday night. I got stuck here, beat my head against the wall quite a few times and died a handful of times, and was just like, I'm going to do this tomorrow night,
Sleep on it.
Yeah, exactly. And came back refreshed, and I was like, okay, like, what is this fight actually doing? So mine is he almost looks like fucking Slender Man without a head, basically. He's just like this very like skinny floating looking thing in the middle of that hole in the center of the room or whatever. And he would do this like beam of light, this like green beam of light would like come out, and if it connected with you, it would attach to your head. And it's another one of those like just wiggle the stick real quick, to shake it off or whatever. But if you allow it to stay on your head long enough, he just explode your head, like he just fucking kills you. So it's like, so that's another one hit KO that has an opportunity to get out of it, type thing. So anyway, so basically what you do is you avoid that attack. If that attack lands next to you and it explodes or whatever, then he goes into the stun state and his body starts flashing green or whatever, and then you got to get as close as you can to him without triggering his short range attacks, so these are all long range attacks. So you have to get close enough to him without triggering the short range attacks to be able to do a level 7 magic spell, to like do magic damage or whatever. You do that 3 times. Okay. Eventually he starts to flash red and then it phases, he goes in the second phase. Exactly what you just said. He starts summoning zombies. And this one really took me a minute to figure out too. And I still don't quite understand it, but the zombies would spawn. He'd spawn 3 of them. And then shortly after the 3 zombies were spawned, he would go into that stun state again. I wouldn't physically shoot at him. I wouldn't do anything but magic attacks during this whole fight. Never fired around at him. And because the one time I did fire around at him, the boss fucking laughed at me. It's just like, oh, you think you can, blah blah blah. You think you can damage me with that? So anyway, so after the 3 zombies spawn, it was usually somewhere around like a 3 to 5 second window, and then it would go into that stun state again, and then you have to like scramble to try to do that level 7 spell. So I was like really trying to play it where, because it's all about timing. The level 7 spell is long enough to where if you do it even a second after he goes into that fucking stun phase, like you might as well just restart, like redo that phase again.
Yeah.
So what I found out is first zombie spawns, second zombie spawns. As the third zombie is spawning, you stand right next to the second zombie. You start casting your spell or whatever. That's enough time that by the time your 7th circle of your rune pops up or whatever, he goes into that stun state, and it's literally just perfect like every time, So you do that 3 times. And then and the whole time too, like, so between phases, the arena is getting smaller and smaller, so you can't like physically walk as far out or whatever. So there's like, by the time you get to the third phase, it's basically just that circular arena. It locks you into that circular arena, and he's just doing nonstop his close range attacks, which is basically just like a bolt of lightning is just coming down. 3 runes pop up on the ground, bolt of lightning comes down, and all you have to do, you don't even have to sprint. You can literally just walk in a particular direction. You'll just avoid all those runes. Eventually, he gets tired. He goes into that stun state. You hit him 3 times with magic. Like that was literally the fight.
Yeah.
But learning the fight, the fact that it took me over a night and had to sleep on it and think about it more and blah blah blah, like it was actually cool. Like I actually really enjoyed it. That was neat.
Well, I think it's cool that they're radically different from each other too. I mean, it seems like the same thing is like you got to kind of just use that magic to take them down.
Yeah.
But the fact that like they are kind of a little bit different, at least to start, and the way they look and everything, it'd be interesting to know what the blue one was then.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I didn't see anything on. I haven't watched the variations between the 3 choices that you can make throughout the game and whatnot. I'm familiar enough with yours because I saw your fight or whatever on YouTube. Yeah, no, I haven't seen the blue one. I'm not sure what the blue one does. So
yeah, and I think it's just kind of cool though, because like I would see that monster throughout cutscenes for a long time, and it seems like your monster was completely different.
Yeah. And my monster shows up in cutscenes too, throughout time too. So
that's kind of neat how this game does have it. Like it's one of those ones, like it does sound kind of cool to go back and play through it, but I can imagine like playing it over 3 times in a row would be, it's great game. I love the living daylights of it. I don't know if it has like that kind of replayability.
It would over the course of like if you played it like once a year and got the final ending or something, like
if it had, because I don't know if it really has like a new game plus thing. I know that when you do in a sense a new game on there, because of your save file, you won't, like, I won't be able to choose red next time I do it. Right. It will only give me the choice of green and blue.
Right.
It would be kind of neat if they did something where like it was the new game plus you kept all your magic, so you could kind of just like sort of power through a lot of that stuff in the beginning, just But I don't know if you do or not.
I don't think so. I think it's literally just new game with you just can't choose that whatever that color is. So we get through that fight with World War I man. And then like Spence says, we kind of go to Edward's chapter. And let's see. Yeah, we do the whole rune thing and all that.
You go through his long one, and then you go to the firefighter dude.
Michael Edwards.
That one's kind of just a fun chapter though. Like I felt like that was that one. You literally fall into this hole here. Baghdad's burning, because they just lit up all the oil fields and whatnot. It's 1991 Gulf War, and you fall into a hole, and you literally hear all your other dudes have died, but you find this other soldier that left a machine gun, pistol, and a bunch of ammo and grenades. I don't think I even used the grenades. I feel bad now.
Yeah, I never used the grenades.
I kind of even forgot they were there, because I will say this game kind of, as long as you pick up everything, you're definitely not going to run out of anything.
Yeah, no.
And that might also be due to the fact that you have melee weapons. If you didn't have, if the melee weapons didn't exist in this game, I think you would actually have kind of a limited inventory of rounds.
Yep. I personally, I really like this chapter a whole lot because you're following in the steps of I guess it is it Kareem or is it Roberto?
Well, I guess Roberto would be after Kareem. So it's Kareem, then Roberto, then that. So you are following the steps of Roberto.
Yeah. and all leading up to like that final bridge or whatever, like so you're basically going back through the ancient ruins of like this Egyptian style looking place or whatever. But really it was leading up to the tail end of that chapter where you get the C4 and then you got to get the C4 charges and like combining those two things together and then like going to the final bridge and it's just like I need to destroy this bridge and whatnot, and you like try to do it and it's just like, well, the C4 is not powerful enough, I need to make it more powerful, and then like intuitive like player decision, it's like okay, so
charge this one up,
cast your enchantment on it, and and then it gives you a timer, you got 3 minutes to get out and whatnot, before the thing explodes, and like yeah, just a really well-rounded chapter. It's full of action, like you're just constantly fighting shit. And that I thought the machine gun was super cool. Another piece, I kind of alluded to it a little bit with the elephant gun, but like the elephant gun, like you can do like 1 shell, 2 shell, like to be able to fire. With the machine gun, it's like you get a single shot, burst shot, fully auto, like things like that. And it's just like doesn't really do a whole lot for the game, I would say, but like it's just a little bit of extra flavor that's just like, here you go, like
yeah
play the
how
way
you want to do use this, and no, that was just a fun chapter. I think it was a cool character. You just gonna go through, blast through. It's almost like especially after doing that Edwards one where it was just like a little bit of a slog, yeah. This one finally is like, okay, there you go, you're gonna make up for that, for all that stupid paradigm thing that you had to do, and then lo and behold, you're gonna be doing it again. But
yeah. So this is also so back in the World War I chapter, and then I think it happens again here because I noticed this with Alex in the final chapter or whatever. So there's 2 portions of this game, and there might be more that I maybe are hidden or maybe just aren't part of the main path. But do you remember the scene in the World War I chapter where you're in the boiler room and you have to summon one of the trappers and you go into this other room and you have to remove a body, warp this body out of existence or whatever, so you can open the door.
I remember that one took me I had to do it like twice because I didn't realize you could actually focus on the body. I was just assuming it's like, he's going to get caught in that circle. It's like, oh, what?
Yep. Yeah.
And I was like, oh, you could target it. Yeah.
Yeah, that one drove me nuts too.
Yeah.
So that, and then somewhere... I can't remember what chapter.
There's the one where you get to walk the zombie in and he smashes in there. And that one, I think it was on Roberto's. I was like, because I felt like, I think this was the first time when I was kind of like, I thought I still needed a piece for that zombie thing. I'm like, dude, where is that at?
Yeah.
And then I realized I'm like, oh no, you to create the zombie, because the summoning spells are different than the other spells because the power level or the 3, 6, and 9 or whatever, 3, 5, and 7. Each power level creates a different monster, and I at first I didn't think I thought I was missing something the whole time, and I didn't realize that if I use the 5 spell, that's a zombie, a 3 is a trapper, and the 7 is took me a moment to figure that one out.
Yep. No, it took me a minute too. I forgot about that puzzle too, because what's really interesting about that puzzle, so what Spence is talking about is like you enter into this one room and it plays this cutscene of this zombie walking towards this like open area or whatever, and he steps on a pressure plate and 2 fucking massive stones like come out of the walls and just go slam, and just like slam them up right there. And what it does is it locks the door, by doing that or whatever. So I didn't put 2 and 2 together. It took me a minute to like figure out what I'm supposed to do in that room. But like Spence says, you're supposed to summon a zombie. You take control of that zombie. You walk him onto that same pressure plate. The 2 stones come out, smashes his ass, and then the door opens or whatever. But what I was getting at is the trapper. So you take care of that one body in the World War I section. And then a little while later in a different chapter, there's like a stone pillar that's blocking an entrance to something. And you're supposed to do the same thing. You just grab a trapper, you warp it out of existence, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't until I go into Alex's final chapter or whatever, and I got hit by a trapper, and it sends me to the alternate dimension or whatever. And I refill a couple things and I, move on. And then like, as you're leaving, that fucking stone pillar and that body is like right there, and you can interact with it. You can totally, like see what happened and whatever.
I thought that was cool too, because it was like one of those ones. It took me a while too. I kept seeing that dead body at the very end. I'm like, oh, that's the dead body by the door that I got. Right. And then, the stone pillar stays there. Yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. Maybe wonder if there was any other, like, if there was like random stuff in the game that you could actually send back as a trapper. Because the weird thing is, I'll say about the summons is like, other than the couple puzzles, like I never use that. Yeah. You know, I because it's like one of those ones like, I don't know, maybe if you really wanted to change things, maybe if it was like the game was like extra hard, you would use some of that stuff a little bit more often. I don't know. I kind of wish the summons, like, because you take control of them, which kind of makes sense. It would be kind of more interesting if you could almost just do the thing when like you summoned it like a zombie, the zombie would just walk along with you and help fight with you, kind of like in a sense. I think that'd be almost seem more practical than.
Well, that's what I was assuming it was. You know, like
they're like familiars or something. Yeah, like Diablo,
like you're a necromancer or something. You know, but no, like you physically take control of them. So, anyways, so that's basically like Michael's story. This is also where you can get the you have to do a couple extra steps, but this is where you can get the permanently enchanted Gladius sword, which is pretty fucking rad. that thing is awesome.
I'm not too sure what these extra steps are because I happened just to get that sword. Like, so obviously I did the steps, but like I wasn't too sure what caused it.
I don't remember exactly what the steps are either. I read it. I literally just did it last night. I mean, I read it in a guide because like it was like a bullet point. It's like, don't miss this, you know, or whatever. So, because there's a whole other thing too that we didn't explain to the audience. I never got it. I don't think you ever got it either. But somewhere in, I want to say it's Roberto's chapter. Maybe it's a different one. I can't remember. Anyways, in one of the chapters. If
I missed it in Roberto's chapter, I'd be kind of disappointed for how much I explored that in.
Yeah, it's I don't remember exactly where it is, but it's somewhere in the game. I read it in the guide after I beat the game. But anyways, you can totally get the fourth color, which is purple, and purple is I don't remember the dude's name, Mantarok or whatever. Is that it?
Oh, it must be Mantarok. Yeah,
the purple, you know, like elder god thing or whatever. And basically, like in the total lore of all of this, again, you know, red beats blue, blue beats green, green beats blah blah blah. You know, like it's that rock paper scissors trio type thing. But then you have this fourth purple one, you know, that is not weak nor strong to anything, you know, basically, and it's a threat. And this is like more or less like why Pius is like trying to summon his god, you know, more or less, you know, is to like take out the purple one so he eliminates that variable, and then he can do his rock paper scissors thing to take out the other ones and blah blah blah. So anyways, so leading into chapter 12, this is the final chapter, and we go right back to the mansion, and we're playing back as Alex. And this is where we finally have everything. We have every fucking spell. We have every, you know, little bit of all the essences that we're gathering throughout all of this and whatever, you know. And now we got to go to the ancient city. We got to go down, you know, underneath the mansion. And I think that I was really stoked leading up to the point of getting back to that one hallway room where we played as Edward or whatever, and we kept going to the towers and we kept respawning, having to run through this hallway like over and over. But now this time, the fucking hallway has damage, like this like yellow layer of like, you know, lightning damage, you know. And we learned from this mechanic earlier through Michael's section. So when you pick up the C4 or whatever, you got to run through that hallway, and it's the same thing. It has the yellow shit on the floor, and it's like, what, you know, just zapping you and whatever. So you have to cast your shield spell, you know, to be able to survive it. I died here way too many times, just thinking because like, one other mechanic that we totally didn't mention at all. There's magic in the world that can get cast on the ground that physically blocks you from entering into a room or into a blah blah blah. It's basically it's a barrier essentially. So you have an ability that is dispel or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'll just explain real quick. My very first interaction right here. So I get to that portion where it's like, okay, it's damage. All right, I'm going to cast my shield. So I cast my level 7 shield. You know, all that's on. I start to run through that, and I notice the barrier at the end before you can enter into the final door to get into the Stargate room or whatever. And I was like, God damn it, you know, and I run all the way down there, and I have 2 fucking shields left at this point, you know, and I'm like, I have to cast a level 7 dispel right now. And I'm like, I can't run back. Like, there ain't no fucking way I can run back. So I'm just going to start casting or whatever. And bro, it goes 1, 2, 3. And the whole time I'm just zap, you know, getting hit. One goes out, second shield goes out. Now I'm just on health or whatever. And I'm watching I get the 7th rune off before it finally damages me, and it knocks me back. And I go, fuck. And I run a couple steps forward, and it zaps me again, and it knocks me back. And I'm like, no, please, you know, like run forward, snap, you know, fucto knocks me back, and then it kills me and whatnot. I didn't save leading up to this point.
See, you got cocky.
Had to restart chapter 12. But anyways, so
I learned. I was like, oh, there's stairs I can go stand on, because I always thought for the longest time I thought that dispel one you had to like be right up on it.
Yeah,
it almost kind of covers the whole room. I think I think you could almost. I'm not 100% sure, but I think you could actually cast it right when you started off before you even ran across the yellow water or whatever, and you could just dispel it from a distance. I
really don't know.
I never tried. I tried it from the stairs. That's what I did.
Yeah. But. Okay. Yeah. See, I every time I ran into that, because this is a mechanic that recurs throughout the game or whatever. It's not super often, but I every time I would just get right on top of it to where I was close enough to where I could physically see the barrier, but it wouldn't damage me, and then cast. You know, just in case.
Yeah. That's what I always did too. But this was the first one where I realized I'm like, maybe I can get it from a distance, because I tried doing what you did at first, and that didn't work out.
Yeah. Yep. So essentially, we redo what Edward did, and we just go through the 9 runes and go up to the towers and restart, and then have to cast your shield again so you can make it back through the yellow hallway, and over and over and over.
I feel like this area should have been in either one or the other character's chapter, but not both.
Yeah.
It was overkill. Almost it should have just been in Alex's one, realistically, because it feels like it was a good ending. Here's a kind of ending challenge for you.
Yeah. But what I do like about this, though, is that when you finally do make it to that Stargate room for the very first time, so there's 3 pillars, with these little boxes on top of them or whatever, and there's one that's missing, and you go pick up 2 chunks of this this podium topper or whatever, put them together, you throw some magic on it, you bind it, you throw it on there, and then you take the 3 essences that you have gathered throughout the game or whatever. And essentially what is happening at this point is Alex now is trying to summon her god, which is green in my storyline or whatever. Trying to spawn Mantarok or whatever, the purple one.
Yeah.
And needs to go through the runic thing to be able to summon this god. Is essentially what's happening in this storyline. And I'm trying to remember exactly. I'm looking through my notes real quick. This all happened about 11 p.m. last night, so I was pretty tired. But anyway, so yeah, we assemble the artifacts and get Mantarok's essence. We confront Pius. And then this is basically the final boss fight. And
once you get to you show up to see Pius and you have a duel with him.
Yep. I didn't really know what to think about this fight. I think it could have been a lot more. I think it could have been a lot better.
A little bit more epic. It is kind of
it was kind of
right. He's sort of like fighting a zombie that happens to have a couple spells.
Yeah. He kicked my ass originally. Upon first encounter, he beat the living fuck out of me. I just couldn't get his timing down. He kept hitting me at. Thank God though, I literally saved right before you go into that fight.
So, well, I like is this game even does the thing right when you go in the last Stargate. I think it's whoa,
hold up.
You want to save? You want to save? Don't be an idiot now.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Essentially, you're in this longish style arena. It basically has 2 circles with a bridge in the middle, essentially. This straight area on some stair sets, and you're essentially just avoiding his attacks. You go up, you smack him once, a little lightning bolt fires off of him, and there's the Mantarok artifact or whatever off in the distance that reveals itself or whatever, and then you can run up and smack that, and it's basically just a rinse and repeat of that. You hit him once, you run over, you smack the artifact, hit him once, so go run back and smack the artifact. Eventually you break the artifact, and then he loses all of his shields and everything like that, and then you can really go to town. And that's where I just casted literally every big dick spell I had, just all of it all at once, and took his ass out. And so
yeah, and you change into the ghost forms of some of the previous characters too.
That was really cool.
Yeah, so you see a lot of your previous characters and you run back and forth. But the boss battle was kind of simple. It was sound weird. Compare that World War I boss battle that felt pretty darn epic. That almost felt more like that was the final battle right there.
Well, I was fully expecting, so throughout this whole like ending to this final chapter, like there's like these like brief cutscenes of like it takes you out in the middle of space in the middle of nowhere, and there's just these old fucking ancient gods just doing battle and shit, you know, and in one of my scenes, you know, like one of the, I think it's the red one. I think it's the I forgot the name of it. Anyways, the red one kind of has these like crab like looking things or whatever, and
yeah,
like
that was the one I fought. Yeah.
Okay. So it like swings into my fucking green one or whatever, and like my green one like bites its fucking hand off, you know, and it's like all this shit spraying all over the place and stuff. I'm like, Jesus Christ. But it's cosmic, you know, like it's cosmic horror at that point. And it's like just on such an infinitely grand scale of Lovecraft that I like everything at that point. I was just like, fuck yes, dude. Like this is so rad to see. Yeah, no, so eventually like you kill Pius. He ends up dying. And then like the game just kind of ends. Like it didn't, I mean, like Alex says a bunch of shit at the end that like really didn't register much with me. And I'm really curious to see like what would happen if you did do 3 runs in a row and get the true ending or whatever.
Yeah. Because I kind of wanted that too. I'm like, there's got to be something you get for doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, from what I understand, it's the 3 main gods die. Mantarok is still stuck underneath the city or whatever, but becomes the ultimate god or whatever, but is like technically like by all rights this entire experience Mantarok is technically the good guy, but when you're on a cosmic scale like that with like eldritch horrors and stuff, like what is good? You know,
yeah,
like,
exactly.
I mean like in general. So but yeah, stellar fucking game, dude. Awesome. Awesome fucking experience. I really like this one.
And it's that one too that when playing it, it's like you realize it's like, yeah, it's such a unique experience. As I said, I can't even think of other. I mean, there's other games that have like, you know, it's in that survival horror like category, of course, but it's just doing so much of its own stuff. And I think one of the reasons why nobody else could use this is apparently Nintendo put a copyright in for the Sanity thing, which that's like one of those ones that makes you wonder, like, you could get a copyright on that. Like, okay,
yep.
You know, Nintendo copyrighted Sanity.
Well, I know. I mean, it's literally like monster capture through Pokemon. Like they're trying their damnedest to fucking copyright that to where nobody else can use that mechanic, and it's like, you shitters, you know.
Well, which the ironic thing is like I hate to sort of say it, but Nintendo would be like, whoa, you gotta pause real quick. Dragon Quest did that before.
Yep.
Because they had it in like, I think Dragon Quest V, which is in like 1993 or whatever, has that mechanic where you can capture monsters and use them to fight like along your team members.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's that thing that a lot of times when you think you are the first one, it's like, wait, so there's mostly always somebody that did it beforehand. But yeah, it's a weird one there to get stuck. Is that yeah, because I felt like this game kind of gets lost in, you know, the Ethereum in a sense. And the only thing I could kind of hope for, and this goes for both the Silicon Knights games, this and Twin Snakes, is because Nintendo has that GameCube section. They did this with the N64 where they put a mature rated section on the Switch 2, or on the Switch and Switch 2. I'm kind of wondering if they might do that eventually if the GameCube is they'll do a mature section on there. I feel this game and Twin Snakes would be the perfect candidates for that section.
Oh, easily. It's the one GameCube game I actually have is fucking Twin Snakes. You know, like, I mean, that's a no brainer. That has to happen. You know. You know,
well, that just seems like the perfect way to go because, you know, you got the Metal Gear Solid collections and stuff out there. It's like, why not just let Nintendo still have their exclusive with that one? Yeah. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's only going to help sell those, like, you know, more, you know, Switch memberships and so on. But I feel like do both the Silicon Knights games, because I'm not really too sure who owns like technically this stuff anymore, since those companies have kind of like went defunct, you know.
Yeah I don't know, because like, you know, I did in post-in research, I did see what you were talking about, that spiritual successor Kickstarter game what
was that one, Shadow of the Eternals, that like they were trying to do,
right? And even the concept videos and art of that looks so fucking good. Like, I want to see that. This is upon completing this experience, I sat back last night and I really like pondered on it, and I'm like, how is nobody, even in the indie scene at this point, like how has nobody continued on with this type of game? This easy remaster, easy remake for sure. Sequel, 100%. Like, I mean, like, I am baffled that nobody's done anything with this franchise beyond this, because it is that unique and it's that fucking good. I like I said, even getting to play on emulation and pumping everything to max and aliasing everything 4K, it looks like a remaster. Like, I felt like I was playing a remastered GameCube game. So like I said, the remake potential of this game is off the chains. Like, I think they could 100% do this, like even down to 1-to-1. I really think they could. There's probably a couple of rewrites that you would want to do here and there, you know, but like in general, I think this would be a really awesome remake. And I would love to see a sequel, because now we have Mantarok out there. You know, we still, I mean, Alex is still alive and whatnot. Like, where's the progression in that? You know, like, I want to see what this purple god's going to do now, you know?
Well, it's that perfect example that, like, you know, especially with video games, a lot of times when you get the sequel, that's when the game gets really dialed in. You know, it's like, because now you know exactly how to make it. You know how to, you know, get those controls more smoothed out and everything like that. It's kind of a bummer that, and I'll say this, I know why there wasn't really a sequel. This game didn't sell very good. It sold like 500,000 copies. Sadly, I used to own one of these copies, and at one of those points in life when you felt like you need a little bit more money, I ended up selling it. Probably back in the day when it was not worth. You're like, oh, I guess I'll get $50 for it, which is probably like $150 for it now. Yeah. But you know, I mean, by inflation, that means it hasn't changed once, but it's the same price as it was when it first came out. But you know, I think that's kind of it. It just didn't sell super well. This was that era where Nintendo was really kind of like, the GameCube was a great era for like survival horror games, because not only you start off with Luigi's Mansion, you had this one, you had all the Resident Evils on there and so on. Like, they were really trying to go to town. They were really trying to capitalize on survival horror, you know, with GameCube. But yeah, for some reason, this one just didn't catch on the same way. I don't know why. You know, because it's one of those ones too, like, you don't always hear this game's not talked about a whole lot either.
No,
you know? No. I know when it comes down to list and so on like this game gets rated really high. Like, right. I mean, it got like literally, I think it's in like the top 100 best games of all time list. Like, that's how, you know, and that's not just horror games, that's all games. So that's actually pretty impressive. And I think it's kind of high up on the list too. I want to say it's like 30 or 40, somewhere in that kind of ballpark.
Oh yeah. Like I said, I have always heard about this game. I'd never, you know, the number one driver for me is that I never had a GameCube. You know, like, I bought a GameCube well after its life cycle was, you know, pretty much over. I mean, like, the 360 era was coming out at that point. And I literally only bought the GameCube so I could play RE4 and I could have Twin Snakes. And I no longer have RE4, but I still have Twin Snakes. You know? So
Twin Snakes, I think that's the most important game for GameCube in a sense.
Yeah.
You know, especially nowadays, because that's the only way you can play it, really.
Yep.
You know, and sometimes that's the only down. Like I'll say about emulation. I'm going to say this about Eternal Darkness, is because the one thing that the GameCube has is it has that L and R that has the clicking buttons in it. Because I think it explained it in one of like the notes I want to say on there, but like, I think when you go to lock onto an enemy, it's meant that you hold it down slightly, and then if you hold it, you click it, or vice versa. It's supposed to switch enemies. So I couldn't do it that way with like a regular controller. So I would just unclick it and click it again, and hopefully hope that, you know, whoever the character was targeted properly.
Yeah.
But I think that was kind of there. So there's some of those like little effects that like they do make a difference, which once again, I'll say on the Switch too, though, because you have the GameCube controller, you can actually still get that effect.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I'd like to, like I said, I'd really like to revisit this again, probably in about a year. I'll probably do the red run. I really want to see, I mean, and I guess I could just easily just go on YouTube and go watch, you know, the final ending and see all the different endings and whatnot. But I kind of want to re-experience this again, you know?
Well, sometimes that's like, I feel like, yeah, you can watch it that way, but it's almost like you don't get the same experience. Like when you do, when you do it yourself, there's something to be said there, you know, and I think that's the way to do it. It's just every single time you go to play it again, you know, just go down a different path. And the nice thing is that the game should remember, hopefully, you know, with my 4 different saves, I really hope that when I start a new game on there, it knows which one I did, because I was rotating back and forth between them all. But yeah, it's one of those ones. It'd be kind of cool to see where that kind of went. As I say, the game just doesn't have that feeling like I want to play it like right again, which I'll say that there's very few games out there that make me want to play a game over and over, like right in a row. Like Dino Crisis 2 is like always my go-to for that. That's why I love that one so much. That Resident Evil 3 remake was extremely well made for that, you know, but it's even like Resident Evil 9, like as much as I really enjoyed that game, I kind of played about like a quarter of it again. And I was like, I'll come back to this another time. It just didn't. Yeah. I didn't have the same like, man, I can't wait to run through this over and over again. I'll say Parasite Eve is that's the other one because it has the RPG system and all your stuff carries over, and the game gives you even more things. So it has there's so many more reasons to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the most modern game that did that for me, where I was like, I'm going to play this over and over and over, it was Silent Hill F last year.
That one because they gave you stuff, they gave you reasons like what you're gonna. There's a reason to, and it sounds like Eternal Darkness has a little bit, but like as I said, it'd be kind of neat if you would have kept all your magic because it'd be kind of fun just to blast through those like early chapters with like full magic right off the bat. Well,
and I can say too, like. Upon repeat, so this game took me to my final save says 12 hours and 19 minutes. I guarantee by the time I was done with Pius and through the final cutscene and then back to menu, and I was probably 12 and a half hours, ish, somewhere in there. I think on a rerun, I could probably easily get this done in probably 7 or 8 hours. Now that I know the pathing, I know what to do. I know, like what items and what order and all the things. Because it happened in this experience for me when I like Alex's thing right at the end, when I died, like to try to dispel that door and just ran out of time essentially, like I got back to that point. It probably took me 15 minutes to get there on my first run, but I got back to that point in like 3 minutes, you know exactly where you need to go and so on. Yeah, I know because it took. I think my save file said. I think the last save I did was like 11 hours and 10 plus minutes. Plus, I know that you had an extra 20 for that final boss and all the cutscenes, and then you add about an extra hour or so plus for all my restarts. Yeah. But I definitely feel like I could probably cut that time close to half. 7 or 8 hours, and get through it. And then probably your third time you could cut down even more. Yeah. The downfall also in this game too is you can't skip the cutscenes. So if you are kind of, which first time through is never a big deal. When you die and then you have to see a cutscene again, that's where it's kind of a pain. Yep. Now that happened to me a handful of times. And like I said, like I really think the only massive blemish this game really has, I mean, we can nitpick the living fuck out of it for sure, but like the number one thing that really stuck out to me is basically chapter 12. It was just having to go redo that fucking runic Stargate thing again. Like that was really the only piece where I was like, damn it. Yeah,
it was already so tedious as the grandfather, and now I got to do it again. Yep. Yeah, that might be about kind of it. Because even the other stuff that I struggled with, like where there's just some of those moments where you're like, dude, I'm getting like beat right here. It wasn't as bad. It was more like one of those ones like, okay, that was just a challenging part or something like that. Yeah. And I know if I went back to it again, it wouldn't be. I know more about it now, and so on. Unless I wait like another 15 years to play the game over again until I forget everything about it.
Yeah, exactly. There's not a lot of baked in bullshit in this game, and even the couple like one hit KO mechanics like I was talking about, like each have a way out. It's not like how many times have we mentioned over the last even year, of like. Yeah, this game has this one hit KO that I don't learn shit from. It's just frustration, and like, so good on Silicon Knights for not having shit like that in their game. Because
that's what I like about like their game. It's like it has difficult moments, but everything in it never feels like the game's screwing you over in a sense. Mm-hmm. It's more that you probably screwed yourself over getting yourself in the situation, but hopefully you saved only like the last room or two back, and you'll be fine. Yep. And I do like how that when there is those grab attacks that could be, I guess, a one-hit KO, you just got to rotate the joystick and you generally are fine.
Yep.
So they give you almost like that, because that's how I feel like a lot of times in games, because that's something that always drives me up the wall, and that happens in a lot of survival horror and stealth games, is that thing where enemy like grabs you, it just goes to a cutscene, you're dead. You're like, you gave me no fighting chance. It's like, that's kind of stupid. At least give me a fighting chance. You know what I mean? You can make it be progressively more difficult each time it does it, but that's what I like about this one. It gives you a chance every single time.
Yeah.
So
and the only other blemish that I can really say is it's literally just the sanity mechanic, and it has nothing to do with the game. It's the fact that we can't use that system nowadays, because I picture a game like think of like Chronos from last year, and it having a sanity meter system like in that type of environment, that type of graphical setting, that type of design, bro. Like
and that game Hill, kind of had a little bit of that, because there was weird shit that happened there. Now, granted, I did also read that Nintendo's patent like ran up in 2021, so it's not saying that somebody can't do it nowadays. Unless
That's
Nintendo
good.
decides they want to do something. It's just too bad. It's one of those ones like Nintendo should just buy this game. I don't know why. Like, you know what I mean? I hate to sort of say it. Like, Silicon Knights probably doesn't have any money. Like, so like I bet you Nintendo could just scoop this up really easily and just, if they want to do something with it, cool. But if not, just throw it on their Switch virtual console. Like, that's all you have to do with it. I think that's a perfect place for it there. It gives you a little bit more diversity. It's one of those games too that's like a mature rated game, but I don't think it's like super like threatening to like people or anything like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's dark and scary and violent, but at the same time, it's not like it's not as horrific, I guess you would say. I mean, I guess you could kind of say it is. I mean, it's still mature. I'm not saying it's doesn't deserve its mature rating. It definitely hits that as pretty darn well. But I feel like it's very like artfully done. I guess I think that's what it doesn't feel schlocky.
Yeah. So here's another scale we can introduce to our podcast. So I'm a father. I've got a 7-year-old. I didn't feel bad with my son watching this game, like, at all.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like, for some reason this one feels like it's horror, but it feels kind of kid-friendly horror. Like in this, or I'll say not kid-friendly horror. You got Luigi's Mansion. Luigi's. It's probably got just as many jump scares as Luigi, except for that there is a couple in there that are pretty intense. But I think it's just more because it's just very artful, like, and it feels kind of like it's almost like you got like highbrow, like almost like it was like Alfred Hitchcock style, like horror. You know what I mean? Because nobody would generally bat an eye, or at least back in my day, I feel like you could show a kid like an Alfred Hitchcock movie and it'd feel like that seems kind of normal. It's not like you're like, here's a Hellraiser movie, Billy.
Yep. So that is one little brief side topic. So I mentioned during the Luigi's Mansion episode that my son was playing directly behind me or whatever. So he fully did it. He beat the whole game on his own.
Nice.
I helped him in a couple areas because there is some like confusing sections in that game and whatnot. But for the most part, he beat the whole game on his own, and came out with an A rank. And I was like,
what do we get? C ranks? I thought I did. Oh yeah, you got the F. I think I got a C, and I thought I did pretty good at collecting stuff.
Yeah.
Well, he probably did the thing, because when you're a kid, you can sit there just like literally picking everything up. Yep. Where like when you get older, you're like, money doesn't do me any good. I'm out of here then.
Yeah. But like I said, this game was fun. He didn't watch the totality of it, but he watched quite a few chapters and quite a bit of time. And even him, like he was like giving me pointers and whatnot. He's just like, oh, Dad, like you should cast this instead of that, and blah blah blah. And like it's fun to get him involved with stuff like that. So
yeah.
But yeah, wonderful game. Eternal Darkness, man. Like I'm thankful that we chose this one. I'm
kind of glad too, because I literally hadn't played it since it pretty much came out in the GameCube era, give or take like 2002 to 3, 4 probably was maybe the last time I kind of played it. So it's been a long time. And it always stuck out to me. And it's funny too, because playing through it again, like there's so much stuff I'm like, oh, I remember this. Like once I kind of saw it again, it was like I was instantly kind of refreshed. If you had to give it a rank on like the Resident Evil like S through whatever D rank or whatever, where do you think this one would hit on that?
This is a very, very solid A rank for me. It's not perfect, but it's a unique story. It has very, very unique mechanics. I love, you had mentioned a handful of like the sanity meter stuff. Like the one that stuck out to me the most was I entered into one room. There's a mess load of zombies in this room, probably good 8 zombies, which in any general room, like there's usually 3 to 4 of them at most, so this room was like overpopulated, and I should have recognized it at this point, like, oh, the game's fucking with me. But I am fighting the zombies in that room and whatnot, and then all of a sudden the screen pops up and it's just like, oh, your controller 1's disconnected or whatever, and your character's just standing there just getting hit over and over, and I'm like freaking out. I'm like, no, please, and then finally doing that realization, like, oh, the game's fucking with me. Stuff like that, dude. It's wonderful. It's so good. So A rank.
I forgot.
Easy.
I wrote one down too, where there was a to be continued screen that popped up, like almost like you got to the end of the game and there's going to be a sequel. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool, But no, I agree with you. I think an A rank is 100% what I'd give this one, because it's I feel like what makes kind of an S rank, at least in my opinion, is like how much replayability it kind of has, and how much is like, that's why I throw like Parasite Eve is like kind of like, that's my gold standard for my S rank, is just because it's like it's got so much replayability in there and everything like that. But this one here at the same time, it's so unique. I feel it's one of those ones like if you had to go to recommend somebody a survival horror game, you're like, and they want something very like different. I almost feel this is like the one to be like, try this one out. Yeah. This is the one that's going to be really different. You're going to get a great game out of it. It's fun, holds up really well. It's unique. You know, the gameplay mechanics in it aren't like anything else you normally see. There's something special about it for sure. And then it's also because it's a little bit more, because it's like, you know, lost to the GameCube and that's the only way you can really get it beyond emulation. It kind of seems a little bit more like it's got more mystique and whatnot to it.
Yeah. Yep. No, this game again, man, it deserves even just a port at this point. Like you said, like put it on Switch to, you know, the GameCube module thing.
I mean, hell, they put that Alone in the Dark, the Game Boy one on there. Like
exactly. You know, like
you know,
I would
that
think,
one's it's a cool game, but it's such an oddball one to be on.
Yeah.
Like you got all of like 20 games to choose, and you pick that one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'd love to see because I think they could totally make money off this too. If Nintendo somehow, some way got the rights back to it and they fully owned it and blah blah blah. Just do exactly what my emulator did. Upscale it to 4K, give it that 60 frames overlook, you know, upscale everything, you know, with anti-aliasing and blah, blah, blah. Charge $30. People will fucking buy it. Guaranteed.
Yeah. Easily, you know.
Like, so, yeah, wonderful experience. Hella cool game.
Yeah, no, it's a neat one. As I said, I really enjoyed going back to it. But yeah, beyond all those good stuff, you can always check out more almost said Silent Hill, Silent Evil podcast, Old Man Orange podcast, and all that good stuff at YouTube and Spotify. Till then, I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
I'm Cameron, and your sanity's still draining.
It is, but I'm going to leave it drain because I like to see what happens each time I go into a room.
Yes, sir.
That's what makes it fun. But till then, we'll see you some other time.